The stories you are about to hear are works of original fiction, written for your entertainment. Any resemblance to real people, real places, or actual events is coincidental. This channel uses AI narration. I'm glad you're here. This is Erebveil. Story 1. The Ridge, Appalachian Trail, Virginia, USA. What follows is a transcript of a voice memo recovered from a mobile phone found on the Appalachian Trail in Shenandoah National Park, Virginia, in the autumn of last year. The phone was found on the trail, approximately 11 miles from the nearest road. It was undamaged. The person it belonged to, a 34-year-old man who had been hiking solo, has not been found. The voice memo was the last file on the phone. It was recorded at 2:19 in the morning. What follows is a transcript of that recording. I have not changed the words, I have only read them aloud. Okay, I'm recording this because I need to say it out loud, and I need to hear my own voice. I've been on the ridge for about 4 hours. I got turned around after dark, which I know. I've done this trail 12 times. But something happened around mile marker 31 that I need to describe it, while I still remember exactly. I was walking, headlamp on, maybe 8 o'clock, and I heard something step off the trail, about 20 feet behind me. Not an animal. I've heard deer. I've heard bear. I know what those sound like. This was 2 feet. Bipedal. Weight distribution of a person. I stopped. I turned around. My headlamp hit the trail behind me. Nothing. I stood there for maybe 2 minutes. Complete silence. I turned back and kept walking. 30 seconds later, the footsteps again. Same distance behind me. Same pace. Matching mine exactly. I stopped. They stopped. I walked faster. They walked faster. I ran. And then, the footsteps stopped. Just stopped. Mid-stride, like whatever was making them, simply ceased to exist. I ran for another quarter mile. Then I stopped. And I stood very still. And I listened. Nothing. I've been sitting on this rock for 4 hours. I have not heard anything. The trail is completely silent, and I want to go. I need to go. But every time I stand up and turn my headlamp toward the trail, I can see, about 50 feet ahead of me, just at the edge of the light, where the trees close in on both sides, there is a shape. Upright. Still. Not moving. It has been there. Every time I've looked. For 4 hours. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it is a person. I don't know if it is. I don't know what it is. But it has not moved. Not once. In 4 hours. And I am going to try to walk past it, because I have no other option. If you find this recording, I need you to know that whatever is on this trail, it waited. That's what I can't explain. Whatever it is, it was patient. The recording ends there. The phone battery was at 42%. When the file was saved, the phone was found, approximately 300 meters. Beyond the rock described in the recording. There were no signs of struggle. At the location, there were no footprints in the mud, other than the hiker's own. The search covered 40 square miles of trail. He was not found. The shape he described was not identified. The trail through that section of the park remains open. People hike it every day. Most of them at night. Use headlamps. Most of them. Look ahead when they walk. Most of them never look at what is standing, just beyond the reach of their light. Most of them. Story 2. The cabin at Kilometre 9, British Columbia, Canada. The door had been locked from the outside. I want to be precise about that. When I arrived at the cabin, the door required a key. The key was under the third porch step, exactly where the rental agency said it would be. I used the key to unlock the door. I went inside. I locked the door from the inside, using the deadbolt. I went to sleep. I woke at 3 in the morning, to the sound of the deadbolt turning. From the outside. I am telling you this so you understand. There was no key outside the door to unlock the deadbolt. I had the only key. It was on the table beside my bed. I was looking at it, and the deadbolt was turning. Slowly, from the outside. I want to tell you how that happened, but first I need to tell you how I ended up in a cabin at Kilometre 9 of a logging road in northern British Columbia, completely alone, in November. My name does not matter. What matters is that in November of last year, I needed to be somewhere, with no people, no phone signal, and no noise. I had just ended a relationship of 7 years. I am not going to describe the circumstances. What I will tell you is that I needed to disappear for 10 days. I found the cabin on a rental site. The listing said, off-grid, solar power, wood stove, no cell signal, no Wi-Fi, no road noise, Kilometre 9 of a logging road, in the interior of British Columbia. The nearest town was 40 minutes away. On a good day, the listing also said, guests should be comfortable, with complete isolation, and wildlife in the area. I read wildlife and thought deer. Maybe a bear. I should have asked, what kind of wildlife? I drove up in a rental truck. The logging road was rough, 9 kilometers of single lane, through dense spruce forest. I arrived at dusk. The cabin was small. 1 room, a loft bedroom above, a wood stove, a small kitchen, a table, 2 chairs. It was exactly what I needed. I unloaded the truck. I brought in 3 days of firewood. I made a fire. I cooked. I ate. I went to bed early. The first 2 days were quiet. I read. I slept more than I had in months. The silence was complete. The kind of silence you only find when you are genuinely far from everything. On the 3rd day, I noticed the deer. There was a field behind the cabin, a small clearing where the trees gave way to maybe an acre of open ground. In the late afternoon, I watched a group of mule deer come into the clearing. 6 of them, a doe and her yearlings. They moved slowly, grazing, completely relaxed. And then they stopped, all of them. At exactly the same moment, they turned their heads, all 6 of them, toward the tree line, at the far edge of the clearing. And they ran, not the cautious walk of deer who have noticed something. They ran, flat out, like something had come out of the trees, directly at them. But nothing had. I watched the tree line for a long time. The clearing was empty. The trees were still. I went inside. On the 4th day, I heard the knock. I should explain. The logging road was private. The rental agency had told me no other vehicles should be using it. The nearest cabin was 3 kilometers back, toward the highway, and yet at 7 in the evening. On the 4th day, 3 knocks on the door. Slow, deliberate. The knock of someone who is not in a hurry. I opened the door. No one was there. The porch was empty. The clearing was empty. The logging road was empty. I stood in the doorway. For a long time, the forest was completely silent. I closed the door. I locked the deadbolt. I put the key on the table beside my bed. I did not sleep for a very long time. The deadbolt was turning. I watched it for what felt like a very long time. Then, it stopped. The door did not open. Whatever was on the other side, it had turned the deadbolt halfway. Then stopped. I did not move. I did not breathe. 20 minutes of complete silence. Then, footsteps on the porch. Slow. Walking from the door to the far end of the porch. Then, off the porch. Into the clearing. Then nothing. In the morning, I walked around the cabin. There were no footprints. On the porch, the ground around the cabin was muddy from 2 days of rain. There were no footprints anywhere. Not approaching the cabin, not leaving. Whatever had stood on that porch and turned my deadbolt from the outside with no key, had left no evidence that it had been there at all. I was in the truck and on the logging road within 45 minutes. I did not stop until I reached the highway. I did not go back for my deposit. I looked up the rental listing 3 weeks later. It had been taken down. No explanation, no reviews, no trace that it had ever existed. Kilometre 9. I think about it every night, not with fear anymore, with something worse than fear. The certainty that whatever was on that porch already knew I would leave, and was perfectly happy to wait until I did. Story 3. The road at Bjørnstrand, Western Norway. I investigate road accidents. I have done this for 11 years, for the Norwegian Public Roads Administration. I am not a superstitious person. I am not an imaginative person. I am, by training and by preference, a person who looks at data, at physical evidence, at tire marks and impact angles, and weather records, and sightline calculations. I am telling you this because what I found on the road at Bjørnstrand has no explanation that my training can account for, and I have spent 3 years looking for one. The road at Bjørnstrand runs for 14 kilometers along the western coast of a fjord in Vestland County. It is a good road, well maintained, clear sight lines, adequate crash barriers, speed limit 60 kilometers per hour. Between 2015 and 2022, 14 accidents occurred on this road. This is not unusual for a road of this length and traffic volume. What is unusual is where the accidents happened. Of the 14 accidents, 11 occurred at the same location. A straight section of road, approximately 2 kilometers, from the northern end. No bend, no junction, no obstruction, no change in road surface, no known hazard, just a straight road, along a cliff edge, with a clear view in both directions. 11 accidents in 7 years, at the same unmarked, unobstructed point. I was assigned to investigate. In 2022, after the 14th accident, the third fatality, I drove the road myself, on a clear morning in September. The section in question is completely unremarkable. I stopped at the point where the accidents cluster. I got out of the car. I stood on the road. There is nothing there. No ice patch. No oil residue. No unusual camber. No sun glare at any angle. I stood there for 20 minutes. And then I noticed the stones on the crash barrier. At the precise point of the accident cluster, someone had placed 11 small stones. They were placed in a line on top of the barrier. Each stone was approximately the same size. Each one had been placed deliberately, not fallen, not thrown, placed. I photographed them. I asked the local roads maintenance crew if they knew who had placed them. They did not. They told me, the stones appear after every accident, not before, after. One new stone, following each accident. They remove them. Within a week, sometimes days, the stones come back. I filed my report. I recommended additional signage, a reduced speed limit, rumble strips. The measures were implemented in early 2023. In 2023, 2 more accidents. Same location. After the second one, I drove back to Bjørnstrand. I walked to the barrier. There were now 13 stones. I counted them twice. 13. 1 for each accident. I looked at the cliff edge. I looked at the road. I looked at the water, far below. I have investigated 241 road accidents. In my career, I have never been unable to identify a causal factor. I have no causal factor for Bjørnstrand. I have no explanation. For the stones, I have no explanation for the fact that the accidents stopped in 2024, not reduced, stopped. No accidents at that location. In 15 months, I drove out to check. In February of this year, the stones were gone. The barrier was clean. The road was empty. I stood at that spot For a long time, I do not know. What changed? I do not know. What those stones were for? I do not know. Why they stopped appearing? What I know is this. When I walked back to my car, I counted 14. Small depressions in the mud, at the base of the barrier. 14. One for each stone that had ever been placed there, as if they had been set down and picked up again. As if whoever placed them had simply decided they were done. I filed a supplementary report. I did not include the stones. I did not include the depressions. Some data does not belong in a report. Some data you carry alone. Those were tonight's stories. 3 things that stayed. A voice memo on an undamaged phone found on an empty trail. A deadbolt turning from the outside in a cabin no one could reach. And 14 stones on a Norwegian crash barrier that no one placed. And no one removed. And no one can explain. The dark keeps records. It keeps them in the places we leave behind. I hope tonight finds you somewhere warm. I hope the road outside is quiet. This is Erebveil. Good night.